Hi guys. Are you ready to read together? Um, Thank you for reading with me today. It's struggle city for me. But we'll do it together. It'll be great. So we are going to read. Where's my reading? I lost my reading. It was a whole situation. We're going to read Notes on a Balinese Cockfight. We're going to keep on reading this one because Geertz is important to me. Symbolic interpretation is important to me. I think it's also really relevant in our current moment. And I think it's a way of understanding the world that is helpful right now. And then also, we're spending some time on this because I want to. Because this stuff is fun for me. This is something I miss, right? Like being in person, like getting to talk about these ideas back and forth. And the ideas that like Geertz puts forth in this ethnography and his, analysis and theoretical exposition. This is what got me excited about anthropology to begin with. So, like, I don't know. Let's do it. Okay, so, I have my reading, which we started last time, right? I have all of my beverages. I have my microphone. I have my little pink notebook. I have like a billion different color pens. It's a whole mood. But I have paper, right? Something to write with, something to write on. But again, I like to print this out because I like to write on it. So I'm trying to remember like what we were talking about last time, and I can just go through and like look real quick, and I see what I underlined. There was an event, it was happening. He's in Bali. The Balinese Cockfight. But like the cockfight didn't happen. We just knew that an important event was going to happen. I'll tell you what, we're going to start on page 417. You can start wherever you want. You can also just ignore all of this. Like, here's a tip. When I read, because it's either like comforting or just weird for there to be silence and us reading together. So if you're not into that, when my head is down, I'm reading. You just skip to the parts where my head's up and you can tell I'm talking, right? Nonverbal communication, paralanguage. I use it. So it's like it's easy. You'll be fine. We're going to start on page 417 where it says of cocks and men. I'm going to just like tell you what happened, okay? In between where we stopped and where we are now. Here's what happened. There was a cockfight. The cops came to break it up. Everybody ran. Geertz and his wife ran. And then like the cops came up. And instead of being like, hello, cops, we are researchers and like here are our papers and we will not get in trouble. Geertz and his wife like sat down in somebody's yard and like started drinking tea and like chatting about the weather, and they played it cool and they like did their thing, right? So they're good now. They acted like they're supposed to. Why do we care? Okay, because remember how nobody cared about Geertz and his wife before, right? They were anthropologists doing field work, and they were like invisible. They weren't people. He described them as ghosts. As I'm going back over this in my head, I'm remembering more and more detail, which is interesting. Sometimes when you start something, you're like, I don't know. But then when you just start to do it, it happens, right? It's like inertia. What you're doing sort of builds on itself. life lessons. Oh, all of a sudden everybody's like, who are you? You're so dope. Like, how'd you learn that? Why didn't you just do what white people do? So they were the talk of the town. And Geertz is like, yo, I want to talk more about this cockfight. Okay, so this is not a textbook, right? And so this is structured differently. So I need to think about why and how I'm reading this. And so I got out my notebook where I write stuff down. Last time I asked you to think about both the form and the content, right? So what was being said and also how it was being said. I'm gonna be even more specific maybe now and add like pay attention to what Geertz is saying and then what he's doing, right? I want you to think about why we're reading this. Why are you reading this? Because Jill says so. That is true. You're reading it because Jill says so. But Jill is an anthropologist that studies learning. She's showed you that she like wants you to learn things that are important. So there's obviously, it's like, that's a good reason because Jill says that there's like probably some merit to this. Well, I mean, I know it's important. It's important because it's about a Balinese cockfight, like who cares? But it's also, that's the specific. That's the ethnographic example. Anthropology works in specifics and in details, right? But also Geertz is building a larger theoretical paradigm. So this specific example illustrates a larger point or a larger theme. So we want to pay attention to those things, right? The specifics, but then what they illustrate about a larger point or a larger theme. Okay, so before we start reading, what is one thing that you want to know after reading this? Like, write it down somewhere. I'm done. I'll share. I said I want to know. I want to know what happens at this cockfight and why we care so much. Cause like I don't know. Phone. Put your phone away. Turn it off. Do not disturb. 20 minutes from now. 25 max. It's 5:50. So I said we're reading until 6:10. We're gonna be done by 6:15. But like that's not what time it is for you. But this also explains the like sun dappled whatever that's happening. All right, so we're starting on page 417. And I want you to underline things. Write on the text. If you have a question, make a note of it. If there's something that you don't understand, write it down. We're paying attention to what's going on, why it's important, right? Stop talking. Just let me read. 417 of Cocks and Men. Wait, what? All right, here we go. Pause. I'm in the fourth line down. Like, what is the Balinese temper? I don't know about this. There's what's it called? A footnote 2, a superscript 2. So I'm looking down. I'm going to look down at the bottom of the page and see what it says. Oh. Well, in 1935, there was a book published, and in it there was a chapter called the Balinese temper in 1935. So I'm going to say this is probably something racist. And I'm going to make a note to look more at this later. But moving, I'm going to keep going. Okay, I'm switching to yellow. Like, I now need multicolored pens. Okay, so the bottom of the first paragraph, I'm still in the first, like, we're not getting anywhere. As much of America surfaces in a ballpark, on golf links, at a racetrack, or around a poker table. Do you agree? What do you think he means by that? Much of America surfaces in a ballpark or around a poker table. In what way? I know nothing about sports. I don't know. But okay, so he's saying, I mean, there's a connection there, right? Much of Bali surfaces in a cock ring. For it is only apparently cocks that are fighting there. Oh, Clifford Geertz, you and the jokes. Anthropologists are wild. All right, so what is it? Okay. So so there's something about a cockfight that is important, that shows us Balinese culture. And then he says, for it is only apparently cocks that are fighting there. He's making a joke. He's making a joke. Actually, it's men. So he's talking about gender relations. Okay, I said I wanted to pay attention to what was happening and why this is important. Well, who is at this event is important. I'm writing that down. So, because at the top of my paper, I already wrote down what and why we care. All right. Shut up and let us read, Jill. Okay, wow. Pause. I'm on page 418. So he starts talking, the first full paragraph there, he starts talking about the language of everyday moralism is shot through on the male side of it with roosterish imagery. So why this cockfight? Well, part of it is going back to language. And he goes through and he gives us examples of how masculinity and different attributes belonging to men, right, are metaphorically compared to roosters. Um, so there's something significant there with how we see, right, men with gender relations. Um, got it. Now, there's also, and at the very end of that paragraph, he says, even the very island itself is perceived from its shape as a small, proud cock, poised, neck extended, back taut, tail raised, in eternal challenge to large, feckless, shapeless Java. So the idea of this, like, rooster or a fighting cock, also, it not only tells us about gender and masculinity, right? So, like, sort of more group level phenomena, but it also can talk to us about larger, like, political relations in terms of the nation state and, like, structures of power and authority within that. That's pretty interesting. This is also something that I go into in one of the study hall challenges, right? So, like, what I would do here is, well, what I'm going to ask you to do is on page 418, like, make a list of the metaphors that he uses here and the attributes that they are describing, right? To make sure that you're understanding the details. You don't have to memorize them, but you need to make sure that you're paying enough attention to what he's saying so that it makes sense in your head. Okay, so we can keep reading now, but yeah, no. Okay, so for the next like page and a half until the bottom of page 419, um, they're just talking about how much Balinese men take care of their fighting roosters and like the different things they do to them. Like I'm okay with that. So I'm gonna make a note that says, or treatment of roosters in this paragraph, but like not my thing. Next paragraph. So the bottom of page 419 is where I'm going. Up right away. This sounds significant to me. The first paragraph at the bottom of page 419, I'm going to underline it. Because although it is true that cocks are symbolic expressions, right? So we're focusing on symbolism, so that's a key word. Or magnifications of their owner's self. So roosters or cocks. They represent, I'm writing this down. I'm making a little chart. The self of the owner. The narcissistic male ego, writ out in Aesopian terms. Oh, big words over it. They are also expressions, and rather more immediate ones, of what the Balinese regard as the direct inversion, aesthetically, morally, and metaphysically, of human status, animality. They are also expressions of what the Balinese regard as the direct inversion, aesthetically, morally, and metaphysically, of human status, animality. Okay, so roosters represent the self, right, of the owner. They're expressions of the self, but they're also representations of the opposite of humanity, which is animality. I don't care what you think about that, right? I don't care right now. In Balinese culture, this is how it's seen. And that's what we're trying to understand. So like, your opinions on any of this are not yet coming into play. You are just interested, right? You are just interested and you want to find out more. Okay, it's 6:05. I want to know more. I want to know about this contradiction, this tension. So we have cockfight. It's an event. Right now we're talking about the cocks or the roosters, which are both expressions of manliness and manhood and what it means to be a Balinese man, but also represent the opposite of that. I mean, I mean, you can all go. You can all go because I said 6:10, and it's like 6:06. If this were class, I would let you out early. But I'm going to stay here and I'm going to keep reading because like I'm kind of into it, and I was not really feeling this today. And like now I'm, don't waste the vibe. All right. Have a good evening, guys. Okay, I lied. So if you're still here, this is getting so deep. On page 420 at so he's giving us other like he's not just like believe me. They hate animals. Just trust me, those people over there. He's telling us what he means. He's elaborating. Babies aren't allowed to crawl. Incest is a less horrifying crime than bestiality. And his evidence for that, the appropriate punishment for the second is death by drowning, for the first being forced to live like an animal. The main puberty rite consists in filing the child's teeth so they will not look like animal fangs. They're mean to their dogs. Pandita's not here. She's out with my mom. So at the bottom of 420, or I'm sorry, the bottom of that paragraph, the first paragraph, in identifying with his cock, the Balinese man is not just identifying with his ideal self, or it not even his penis, right? He used like the dirty talk to get us into it, but like I think he's there's more substance behind him. But also, and at the same time, with what he most fears, hates, and ambivalence being what it is fascinated by the powers of darkness. The powers of darkness. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, here's what this is starting to remind me of. And I'm going to tell you. But I want you to promise to keep going, to keep reading after until page 421. Okay, so he's saying this thing that represents himself, right, is like also represents evil, darkness, anti-human. And in the cockfight, when you are fighting this thing that both represents you and represents like the worst of society or something, and you don't have to like be like know that and be totally aware of it, but when you're controlling it, it reminds me something. I don't know. I'm not sure, but it reminds me of this theory called edge work. And when I was doing research with graffiti writers, right, looking at graffiti and other forms of like extreme risk-taking behavior. And oh, I'll say who's responsible. Edge work is a sociological theory, and I'll put it in the comments. But looking at risk-taking behavior, where in order to sort of combat the powerlessness and like oppressed positions that we can be in everyday life, people create risks so that they can control that risk and overcome it, like walking the edge, right? So people purposefully put themselves into risky situations like in order to, I don't know, it kind of makes you high. You feel like you're in control of your life, of whether you live or whether you die. It's something you did, you know, you overcame, when like so much of your life is out of your control. I don't think they're the same, but I think the connection there is rituals of power and powerlessness, and how and um the way we involve ourselves in those rituals. All right. I'm just thinking. All right. It's been 20 minutes. I'm going to read until the fight for sure because I want to know. But thanks for reading with me. You know, sometimes it's lonely doing this stuff during a pandemic when you can't like go to the wherever um where everybody else is doing it too. So we'll do it together. Have a good evening, guys.